Hey everyone, and welcome back to On That Note podcast. I'm Chad Reed, and Molly will join me shortly. But before we get into this episode, I wanted to let everyone know that Molly and I are going to be at Cheersport this weekend. So if you're a listener and you want to say hey, please feel free to do so. We're going to have our recording equipment there. We're going to be giving immediate responses to routines and talking to coaches and athletes all weekend long. So if you stop by and say hey, we may even put you on that episode. If you haven't met us before, we're going to be in our New Level Music and Team Legacy Productions apparel, so you won't be able to miss us at all. So stop by, grab us, say hey, because we'd love to meet each and every one of you. So now on to this episode. Guys, we have Anthony Arasi. He is a dear, dear friend of all of ours here at New Level Music. He is the secret weapon of New Level Music. He talks to us about working with all of us producers. He talks about life as a new dad, because this was his first year as a dad during cheer season. And how he balances all of that, which is still mind-boggling to me, how he was able to do that. He gives us so much information. Like anytime we talk to Anthony in private or whatever, like he's just always a wealth of knowledge, and he's so intelligent. He's such an intellect. So we were really excited about sitting down and talking to him for this podcast. So we think you'll enjoy it. I know me and Molly did. So let's hit the music and we'll get into it. So we'll see you this weekend. Let's get it.
You were destined to fly high.
Anthony.
Chad.
What's
Mr.
up, buddy?
Reed. Not too much, my friend. Just hanging in there.
We have Anthony Arasi in the studio today.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, guys. So glad to be here. So honored to be joining this illustrious podcast team.
Well, we definitely had to get you in the beginning of this thing because you would definitely make a more interesting conversation. So we had to come out with the big guns.
Right.
That's right. Anthony can talk. He's one of our good talkers and explainers.
I'm very conversational, guys. Very good at this.
You are. Because if you notice, like in that Senior Elite video, it was tough to cut you down. Like, you gave me a good 30 minutes of footage.
The thing is, I'm one of those people where like it's sort of the hamster wheel in my head starts turning and then words start tumbling out of my mouth. And sometimes I understand what they are in advance, and sometimes things just happen. And I do that for like hours and hours on end. So that's my strategy for getting people on my side, just talking you to death.
But here's the thing. All of it was interesting. That's what I love about you.
Yeah, it was a lot of good content that we couldn't cut down. So a lot of the video is just Anthony narrating and explaining things about the company.
Well, there's a lot to say. I mean, listen, we run quite a machine at New Level Music, and there's a lot that happens, and there's a lot that goes into doing what we do. And, I play a small part in it, but it's definitely a part, to be sure.
So I think a lot of people heard, your job responsibilities and what exactly you do as far as the Cheer Music Pro side and, what you do with Patrick, but no one's really heard a lot about what you do on the New Level side as far as New Level Music and with the other producers and as the company as a whole. Right.
So in addition to some of the stuff I do with Patrick, which is, a lot of recording, mixing, post-production on all of his content, I do a similar thing for the other producers in the company. So I think at this point we have 14, 15 other producers, something like that. And they all need content for their mixes as well. And some of our producers do completely original content the way Patrick does. Some of our producers don't. We have producers in every budget range and every sort of degree of mixing a cheer mix that you can have. And for the ones that do original content, and even for some of the ones who don't do completely original content, they need vocals, they need production, and they need all of that stuff the same way that Patrick does. So one of my main jobs with them is to coordinate all of that stuff and make sure that it gets done. If it's vocals on the New Level side, we run, a vocal production business as well, in addition to the cheer music that we do. So producers can order vocals from us. We have a team of vocalists that record them, and sometimes I record them myself. I have to mix them. I have to get all these vocals to the right people at the right time, and it can be quite the task, because we have so many producers that we work with that get these vocals, and incidentally, for the vocal business, we do vocals for producers who don't work at New Level as well. We do this stuff for other people who contract us through the company. So I kind of run and maintain all of that. And, it's nonstop music, nonstop recording, nonstop mixing, which is not the worst job in the world, but someone has to do it. I was chosen.
Yeah, someone has to do
one.
it. Well,
Now, go ahead, Chad.
Well, no, I was going to say that, my favorite title of yours is lead technical advisor, because
Right.
I know that, for me personally, my sound came a long way once you got involved with New Level. So, I mean, just your expertise and your different outlook on and bringing your mainstream outlook to this thing called cheer music really helped me and all of the other producers really fine tune our sound and our craft. That really just took us, and I really don't want to do this on this episode, but it really took us to a new level.
Yeah, I was waiting for it.
Sorry.
No pun intended.
I had to, it just kind of came out, but no, I mean, it really did. And so, you have the responsibility of traveling around all over the country to all of our houses and all of our studios to hang out with us and to, sit with us and teach us one-on-one, as well as at our yearly training. I've always been a big admirer of how you do that, and just either, come into my place once a year, you know everything on my computer, on my system. Heck, you didn't even know my passwords. So it's like how you keep everything in line, and just with all 15 of us, we're all different. We all have different routines. We all have different setups. How you keep everything in line is just amazing to me.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So for those of you who aren't aware, Chad runs Team Legacy Productions, which is one of our most beloved production companies that we work with at New Level. And yeah, that's one of the roles that Patrick brought me in originally to do. One of the main focuses that he's always had is okay, how can we take what I do on the cheer music production side and bring similar production quality to some of our other producers who may not have certain things that I have, like a big team of artists and a team of producers and all this stuff. How can we get producers at different levels of production to sound as good as they possibly can? So initially when I was brought into the company, that was my role with Patrick, was to take his room and his studio and his software and his production techniques and make sure that they were all in line with some of the stuff that I've learned in my time as a mainstream music engineer, which is what I always did before I was involved in cheerleading music. And so, so part of my job is to go around to the country to all of our different producers. We have producers all across the world, a few international ones, most of them here in the US. But I go over to their places at least once or twice a year, and my job is to try and address all of the technical issues of their production. And that could be anything from the software they're using, the microphones they're using, the way their room is set up and how their studios are arrayed, how I can make their rooms sound better with more soundproofing, and even things like a lot of times clients will bring, producers will bring in artists that they record, and I can sort of coach them through vocal deliveries and give them more insight into how we do our process at Patrick's, from his position, which is at the highest level, really, you can mix cheer music. So my goal is to try and impart some of that knowledge to you guys. And that's a lot of fun for me too, honestly, because I spend most of my year and most of my life, in fact, cooped up in my, dark cave of a studio for most of the day. And it's a lot of fun to travel around and consult with you guys, because my job then turns from like a production, technical, recording, mixing job to almost more of like a teaching position, and more of, I'm sort of overseeing you guys' processes and trying to optimize those in meaningful ways, and it's cool because everyone is so different, right? We have a lot of different personalities at the company, and no one's setup is the same. So for me, it's always an adventure to walk into, especially a new producer that I've not worked with before. It's like, okay, I kind of wring my hands when I'm walking through the door. Like, what kind of room am I going to go into, like a gymnasium that needs $10,000 worth of sound treatment? Or am I going to walk into a professional studio, or is somebody recording in like a dank basement with like a picnic table? Just, what kind of setup am I working with here? And fortunately, yeah, we've been able to get you guys to a pretty good place where everyone in the company is making music that I think people value, and they really get, I mean, they definitely get their money's worth, but I think more than that, they get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing how their kids react to the work that we do. So it's just fun for me to be a part of that, and to help you guys do it from a technical end is pretty cool.
Well, and don't forget, you're also a part-time therapist.
Full-time therapist, Chad.
Also
Okay,
a
my
full-time
bad.
therapist. Yeah. I, in addition to your passwords, I know a lot of producers' passwords, in fact, and I know a lot of their personal stories and their personal lives. That's actually the funnest part for me, honestly, is I get to be the one guy in the company who goes out and talks to all the different producers and gets to really get into their lives and hang out with them and hear their personal stories and all of that stuff. I think I have a level of attachment to a lot of the guys that is not as common in kind of these bigger company setups. I mean, we're a really small company still, but Patrick's working on his mixes. He's at the top of his game. He's at the top of the company as well. So he doesn't always have time to check in on every individual producer and make sure that everything's going well. That's largely why he leans on myself and Molly and the rest of the kind of the back end staff.
I think that's true. Like, as our company as a whole, we're all really close knit. We're all best friends. We're all a really weird group of people that seem to mesh really well together. And it's fun. Like at training, it's always one of my favorite times of the year, where the whole company comes together in Atlanta. We all hang out together. We're forced to be around each other for multiple days on end.
Training is my favorite. It's my favorite time of the whole year, because then we get to teach the guys, even from just a technical standpoint. They get lessons and kind of educational tools in that group setting that I can't give them one-on-one. Like last year we had a bunch of group activities that we were doing where we were, kind of working with each other on particular sections of mixes. And that was, I think, really eye-opening for a lot of our producers, because they hadn't really done that before. Maybe they've collaborated now and then with other producers, but you don't often sit several people down at a table and say, hey, you build this standing tumbling section, you build this stunt, and then you do the dance. That was really cool and yielded a bunch of cool results. But yeah, we're a whole room full of weirdos who make no sense together if you don't combine us with, we come from such different and disparate backgrounds. It's like, it would be really strange if we were all in a room together for any reason other than cheer music. But because cheer, I think, inherently lends itself to weird, kind of quirky personalities. You know what I mean?
They flourish in our industry.
That's who it is. Honestly, like I feel like you're not going to be successful in this industry if you don't have a screw or two loose. You know what I mean? Like the you see this in cheer everywhere. Like when you meet choreographers and coaches and even some of the athletes, you're like, oh, I see. Okay, you're the weirdest person I've ever met in my life.
And
I see what's happening now. And yet it totally works. That's why they're so good at their jobs, because they have this sort of quirky affect that lets them pour everything into what they're passionate about, which, in this case happens to be cheer.
Well, it's an industry full of creatives, and as a whole, creatives have that quirky, crazy mentality, and it's an entire industry made up of that, which is amazing.
Molly, has it been tough for you as someone who kind of oversees all the administrative stuff at this company? Is it tough for you to try and wrangle creative personalities?
Yeah, every day.
Because they're not normal humans, right? They're like a different species.
Well, and I'm not a creative. I'm a very black and white, like a practical person. Math is my thing. I like accounting.
You're a numbers gal.
I get happy with it. So yeah, it's been different, but it's so much fun. It's such a yin and a yang, I think, for me, dealing with all of you guys who have a totally different mindset than I do.
It's interesting too, because, right, like creative people aren't typically used to, regimented scheduling and, hitting very specific deadlines at very specific times. And that's something that we pride ourselves on a lot at New Level is like, we're very good about deadlines. We really try. And if we tell somebody they're going to get a mix 3 months from now on a Monday, we make sure that they have that mix, barring some unforeseen circumstance on that Monday, during that time frame, and that's got to be tough because creatives, these people have to kind of work when they're inspired, and they have to, I do a lot of my best work at 2 a.m. when everyone else is sleeping. I mean, that kind of stuff is hard for non-creative people, I think, to work around. So we constantly stand in awe of you and what you do, and keeping us all in line with the many different things that we have to do.
Well, we have a really good process. I think we've built over the years. I don't know how long, 7 years that the company's been together the way that it is. I think we've built, foolproof processes. And as long as we can get, everyone to follow the processes for the most part, then I think it just happens. Right. I think everyone kind of gets in the flow, and during busy season, they just grind it out and come out on the other end, and it just worked.
Yeah, you can always tell how busy everyone is because if the group me is quiet for a long time.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
I mean, because our group me goes off so much in the off season. But once we hit about August and September, crickets.
You know what it reminds me of? It's like at a big family dinner when there's a ton of conversation flowing and everyone's talking and chatting and laughing, and then the food gets there and it's just silence because everybody's eating.
That's exactly right. I mean?
And there's like 3 months out of the year where the entire company is eating, and so we have to mitigate. I mean, Lord knows, you can ask anybody who's ever attempted to get a hold of me during this time of year. Just my phone is just a litany of missed texts and emails and people. A, bickering at me for not communicating with them. B, just calling to make sure I'm still alive and nothing has happened to me because we stay buried in our work like this.
I remember one time last year was a really busy year for us. It was a lot of transition. One time last year, Anthony comes into the studio and had like a full-on beard on his face, which Anthony is normally a very clean-shaven guy. And I was like, oh man, the razor hasn't even come out. It's that time of year.
Yeah, there are times when like a shower and a shave is, I feel like a new mom where I'm like, oh, I can shower every 3 days. It's like a miracle, it can be brutal.
Speaking of which, you're going through your first busy season as a new dad.
Yes.
How has that been?
Full on dad status. Well, that's interesting. I think a lot of people out here in Cheerlandia can probably relate to just the chaos of going through a busy cheer section or cheer season rather with kids. And honestly, to be frank, a lot of it's just about having a good partner. I have to shout out my lovely lady, Karen, because she is obsessed with this kid just like I am, but I have to work, and she actually works as well. She's a lawyer. She runs her own legal firm. And so she works mostly from home. I work mostly from home. So it's great. We get to hang out with our kid, but we're constantly doing stuff and we're constantly busy. And I don't work the kind of job where I can just have my kid on my lap all day and have him talking and yelling and screaming. Like I have to, if I'm recording, then I have to be recording. So obviously there has to be silence around me. If I'm mixing, I have to be using my ears and paying attention. I'm using both my hands and my ears at the same time. So I can't hold a kid and work on my system as well. So it's been an incredible balancing act, just trying to find time to make it all happen. You know what I mean? It's just, it's easier said than done. And in fact, it's not even easier said. I don't think anyone would say that working a full-time seasonal job like this with a kid would be easy. Cause it's just not, but it's a blast. I mean, we're so lucky that we actually love and we enjoy our job. So I don't have to leave my studio in like a cranky, miserable mood to come hang out with my kid, like we can actually be happy and enjoy ourselves and it's just awesome. I mean, it's been an awesome season so far. It has been busier. Yes. I mean, I have to take my time much more seriously now than I ever have. But aside from that, it's a blast, man. I mean, having a kid is a blast.
Well, the thing is like Anthony is a self-proclaimed keeper of secrets of New Level. Like he said, he has all of our secrets that we all share with him. And then, no joke, like he went the entire 9 months and like 2 weeks before his son was born, hey guys, by the way, I'm having a kid.
Anthony, you don't even look pregnant.
How did I do it, you ask? Skinny tummy tea.
I mean, it was just
ad.
the most out of the blue thing, and of course, all of us were stoked for you, but it was like, how did you keep this for everybody? It was so crazy.
I'm a keeper of my own secrets as well.
There you go.
I'm one of those people, man. I don't get too much into my personal life. I always focus on the work and the task at hand, and my personal life tends to be kind of an afterthought. So unfortunately, the announcement of my young son's birth was kind of an afterthought too, until it happened. I was like, oh, I got to tell people about this. That's right. Now I remember. People should want to know that I have a child.
We were also traveling a lot. It's right in the middle of NCAA and Worlds and all the competition season. So we were all over the place. None of us had really gotten together except for training.
So yeah, it's a tough time, and I think we revealed it through a company email or something like that. It's like the most corporate possible way to announce a pregnancy, but it's awesome. I mean, obviously the whole staff at New Level and the whole squad has been super supportive, and everyone's been giving me grace this year if I'm, behind on a thing or two, because they know I have a new youngin', yelling and screaming behind me. So, it's been awesome.
Well,
You guys
all
are
of
the
us,
best.
all of us know that as soon as you said it, like, there could be no better dad. Like, it's
you guys.
It was
Chad.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I know the kind of man that you are, and it could happen to a better person.
Oh, hey, easy, man. Easy on all the positive praise here. I get uncomfortable with this. Sorry, you're making me red over here. No, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a blast, man. I'm an easygoing person, and I like to laugh and make people laugh around me. So I figure if I can just keep doing that, but with a small child, then hopefully he'll turn out okay.
And
He's
and
such a
without a
happy
doubt,
baby.
this kid's going to be dressed head to toe in Gucci.
Oh, listen, man.
Already.
The boy will be swagged without a doubt. He's already got some shoes. He already has a Gucci onesie. I actually got it when I was out there in California with my man Bode. Shout out to Bode Beal. And at Beats, I guess he was Bodacious Beats. Now he's Beats.
Who's also an expecting father.
Yes, also an impending father. Absolutely, his young one's coming.
So many
soon.
New Level babies.
There are. Yorgos just had his baby as well. We're knocking him down, But yeah, he took me out to the outlet Gucci store out in California. There's only like 3 in the whole country. So the second I got out there, I was like, where we're going first, right? We're going to spend way too much money that we don't have, obviously.
Did you hear a choir of angels when you walked in?
I did. They were all Italian sounding angels. They sounded expensive. I could hear the gold chains rattling as they hit high notes. Yeah, it was very Gucci centric. But no, yeah, it's again, we get to work and play when I go out there to hang out with these guys sometimes, and that's part of the fun too. There's an aspect of what I do and what anyone does really in business, which is it's not just like how good are you at the job, how do you do the job. It's also about connecting with your team, right? And like connecting with the people who do what you do and getting to know people on a personal level. It's like, I know that I can tell Chad or Molly or one of our producers something, a little bit out in left field because they've spent enough time with me personally to know that I'm just a weird guy and like we have weird things to talk about. And so that level of kind of interaction and camaraderie is, you don't just get that by like just signing people's checks and giving them tasks to do through email. You have to get to know them. And that's where I have a lot of fun, honestly, with the company, is just getting to explore all of you guys, not only professionally, but personally as well. Because, cheerleading, like most industries, it's a networking industry, right? A lot of it's about who you know. A lot of it's about making personal connections. Coaches and choreographers, you guys can email us in. You guys all know that, your success in this industry is based on the relationships that you can make and keep. If you're great at your job, fine. But if everyone hates you, you're not going to get that far. You know what I mean? It's hard to sustain a career off just pure skill and, no interpersonal, positivity. It's a tough one.
That's true. Especially in this industry. That's something I wouldn't say we've struggled with, but something we've definitely kept in the forefront of our mind as the company grows. And we are becoming a bigger company with, more producers, more clients, more mixes. And it's something that you have to keep in mind. Like, all of these clients need to have a personal relationship with us, if they call the office with me or with Desiree. So it's definitely something that is important in this industry specifically.
Absolutely.
So how was it with you in the beginning, being a non-cheer person, coming into this cheerleading chaotic world with booms and zings and lasers.
It was complete madness. I'll never forget the first time Patrick played me a cheer mix. I think it was like, this would have been, I mean, I started with him, I think, doing random stuff in like 2011. So this would have been maybe 2011, 2012. I think he played me maybe the Wildcats mix from 2011 or 2012, something like that. And I had no idea what I was listening to. The first time I heard a cheer mix, it sounded like chaos to me. I was like, I always joke with people, I'm like, why is there like a Star Wars laser battle happening behind this music? Like there's just explosions and lasers, and I'm pretty sure I heard a stormtrooper screaming in the background for some reason. Just stuff that made no sense to me at all, just listening to it. It sounded like just a catastrophe, like an oral catastrophe, right? But then it changed for me when I saw the visual of it, when I saw it, synced up to the video, and I saw how the choreography matched. Then I was kind of like, oh, okay, I get more of what's happening here now. It's those sound effects aren't arbitrary. They're meant to score and to accentuate very particular things. And that was a pretty cool revelation to me, because when I first came in, I was thinking this was all about just making the music, and that was the only element that was to be concerned with. But what you realize is there's a huge visual element too, obviously. So, and in fact, it's more so visual than it is even sonic, because yes, we're making music, we're trying to make the music big and impactful, but that music is to score the visual, it's to soundtrack the visual. So essentially what we're doing is like an audio post-production job. It's almost like doing sound effects for a movie or dialogue for a movie, because we're basically just accenting things that happen in front of our eyes. Now, our challenge is, how do we do that in the biggest, coolest, most interesting way possible? And more importantly, how do we keep it fresh? Because that's the thing that I can't even, when I talk to Pat and he's says stuff like, oh yeah, I've been doing, Panthers mix for, I don't even know how long at this point, 15, 16 years. He's been doing this one mix. And I'm just like, dude, how much can you write about scratching and clawing and Panthers and hunt, and like, it's unbelievable to me that we're able to keep doing these every year and still kind of making them fresh and interesting. But yeah, it was a huge eye opener coming from the mainstream world, where music is just works differently than it does here. I mean, it's much more it's much more of an assembly line here. I don't necessarily want to say that to minimize the process, but we do so many of these mixes. Like there's just certain aspects of the production that we have to streamline and we have to kind of regiment, in a way that normal music isn't. Normal music is very kind of lax, and it's a creative process, and we'll be in the studio for a couple hours just talking before anything actually gets done. In the cheer world, it's like, boom, the session starts at 3, like we're recording at 3:05, you know what I mean? And it doesn't stop until we're done. And that is definitely something that takes some getting used to, coming from the mainstream world. But I also love it because I like consistency. I like the structure of the management company, and it's just a whole new world. But now that I've been in here, 7-8 years, it feels normal now. I don't even think about some of the weird quirks that. The first time I was at a competition, it blew my mind. I didn't even know. I was like, there's so many people here, and everything sparkles. My eyes hurt, because I look at uniforms and it just, they would shoot me back in the eye with diamond glittery goodness. And I didn't even know how to deal with it. I didn't even know what I was looking at. But eventually now all that stuff is in the back of my mind. And when I watch a routine, I'm pretty much only seeing skills and just kind of seeing the more technical aspects of what they're doing, which has been a really cool transition for me. Because I'll be honest with you, I mean, I'm one of these musicians. I've been a musician my whole life. Like, I was the kid in high school that the cheerleaders would make fun of, and like I would make fun of them. Like we had an adversarial. I think people hear the word cheerleader and they get this impression of some cute girl who used to tease them in high school. And one of the coolest things about coming into competitive cheerleading was realizing that that's not what it is necessarily. That's not the case. I mean, there's a lot of really passionate athletes who are obsessed with being the best and winning. And that was an attitude and a perspective that I didn't have a lot of, because I'm used to hanging out with musicians. I mean, most of them are burnouts. They're like society's like rejected, they're the rejects of society. They're the ones who are on the outskirts. So to be surrounded by all these athletes, and in our case with New Level Music, it's great because they're athletes. A lot of them are former cheerleaders, are producers, but they also have that creative aspect of their minds as well. So that's a cool thing that you almost never see, is like really, well put together athletic people who are motivated and type A, like these gung ho people who also have, a creative side to them. And that's been probably the coolest part of me coming into this side of the industry from, the more traditional mainstream music side. It's just seeing the different personalities. Like, it opened up my eyes in regards to who can make music, and who is making music, as opposed to just what I always thought of people who made music, people just like me, So that's been awesome.
So on top of all of that, like, you coming from the mainstream side of music, let's go back a little further. Tell us a little bit about your education and about Full Sail and that, where you come from in that area. Right.
When I was young, I was playing in a band with a bunch of my friends in high school, and we had our bass player was his aunt was a woman who ran like concert promotions and tour promotions for some of these big festivals. Nowadays, big festivals are like all over the place, and there's 10 of them a year. But when I was in high school, almost 20 years ago at this point, I graduated in 2002. There were festivals out there, but not a lot of like really prominent big ones. So anyway, I was playing with this band, and we got to play this big show in Nashville called River Stages, which used to be, I don't know if they even still do it, but River Stages in Nashville is kind of like what our Music Midtown is in Atlanta. It's just a big festival show. And we got to play on stage with Incubus, which is a band that I don't know if any young people know who they are, but when I was younger, they were like all over the charts. And most people know 30 Seconds to Mars, which is Jared Leto's band. We got to play with them as well. And I was like 17 years old, and I got off stage, singing vocals for this band, and there was people waiting for me to sign autographs and like all this crazy stuff that I didn't even know was a thing that I would ever be able to do. And it was so cool. I was like, okay, that was kind of one of those moments when I realized like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it, but I have to find a way to do music for the rest of my life. Like, I have to do this forever, because it was just too much fun. And then I was like, wait, people get paid for this? Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. Like, so anyway, that took me eventually to Full Sail, because I knew I wanted to be in the music industry. I didn't really want to be an artist, because I wanted to make a living too. And if you want to make money in music, the last thing you want to do is be an artist. So I started thinking, like, what can I do maybe behind the scenes that would be good, that would be interesting for me and kind of, capture my attention. And a friend of mine talked about Full Sail, and he was like, yeah, man, it's this great program. You go there for a year and you can learn how to record and mix and master. And I didn't even really know much about what those things were. All I heard was like, oh, it's a year-long program. You get an associate's degree, and then you can start working at studios and making music. And I was like, okay, boom, sign me up. Like, let's do it. So I went there. It was a year-long program. It was amazing. I met some great people there. And after that, I started my trajectory. I mean, I got home. I started interning at different studios in Atlanta. I got really lucky. The first place I interned at is not around anymore, but it was called Major League Studios. And all the people who ran that place were really plugged into the local scene in Atlanta. They had a lot of up-and-comers who were showing up there and recording. And so I got to record a lot of great people, and I didn't really have to do a lot of hustling to get clients, you know what I mean? Because they were kind of brought to me. And then after, under a year, I think that studio kind of shuttered and closed down, but I still had all these clients who liked my work and wanted to keep working with me. So I was able to kind of parlay that into a series of, kind of recording and mixing gigs for the next couple of years. And I graduated Full Sail in 2005. Worked all throughout the industry in Atlanta till about 2010, 2011. And then 2011 is when I met Patrick. We did an album called Reigning Champions that I think some cheer vets may be familiar with, because that was something we did, I think, 8 or 9 years ago. And it was just it was kind of Patrick's effort to try and blend the mainstream music world in with the cheer world, in a more kind of compelling way, in a more direct way, I would say too, because, music was made very differently back then than it is now. So we were really trying to bridge that gap with that record, and we made it, and it was great. But then after making it, Pat was like, hey, like, you're a mix engineer. You have a great ear. You made these records sound really good. Like, maybe I can take you and bring you into my company and help you. You can show some of our other producers and me about how you do what you guys do in the mainstream world. And that's pretty much, history's written from there. I mean, that was the start of our partnership. And at that point, I think he had just started the company with Molly maybe a year or two before that. So I think at that point there were like maybe 5 producers. You were one of them,
Chad
Chad.
was one of them,
Yep,
the
Chad's
originals.
an OG. Oh, Chad's been in this company since before I have. He is the OG of the squad, and so it was you and I think like 4 other producers maybe, including Patrick. So there was like 5 or 6 total.
Yeah, there was
And now we're
5
at
of us.
15.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
there was 5 of us, and 3 of us are still around. So
Got you. Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was it. And that's pretty much takes me from being a young high school kid who thought he knew everything to realizing as an adult he knows nothing. And now as an older adult, I've learned that I know a few things. So we're making progress here, step by step. But yeah, that was it. I mean, I knew from a pretty young age I wanted to do music. I've been playing guitar since I was about 13, and probably around 15, 16, I got the bug to start playing heavy and getting good, or playing heavier, And from that point on, I was like, okay, I'm going to do music somehow. I just need to figure out how.
A lot of people also may not know you from your singing talents in a number of Patrick's mixes.
Yeah.
Well, now a lot of people's mixes.
Right. I used to be the pyramid guy for a while.
You still are.
I kind of still am. Yeah. I've done like Stingray Orange's pyramid a couple times.
That one was like probably the most popular one.
Right. Was that Unstoppable? I don't even recall which song
remember.
it was, but I've done that. I mean, I don't know. Yes, I do sing every now and then. They force me on the mic now and again too. But that's what I originally did. I mean, I was a singer growing up. I've always sang my whole life, and in my band that I was in that was moderately successful, I was a vocalist as well. So that was always kind of my main thing, and then a guitar player. And now, I'm mostly engineer. But yeah, these fools make me sing every now and then.
Back when we could do mainstream songs, what was that one song that you did? I'm pretty sure it was a pyramid song. I want to say it wasn't All American Rejects. God, what was the name of that song? It was
I don't know.
I don't even know which team it was for, but I remember you doing it, and then I heard that song the other day on the radio, and I couldn't get over how much you sounded like them.
Oh, is that back when we used to do parodies of different songs, and
Yes.
we would do like celebrity impersonations in the mixes and stuff?
Right.
Yes, Kesha.
Yes. Molly's Kesha was the stuff of legend in that era.
That was back before we got some real recording artists into the company.
Right. But we still it's funny when we write stuff with Patrick, we still kind of do that sometimes. Like, this guy Amori, who you guys have met briefly through the Senior Elite behind the scenes, one of the most talented guys I've ever worked with, an incredible writer, an incredible singer. And he's got a great work ethic too, which we all love. But he still to this day, I mean, I'll see vocals on Pat's spreadsheet, that are like, oh, this is Amori doing Ludacris. This is Amori doing T-Pain. This is Amori doing, whatever. Like, he's got a million different characters. So we still kind of do that sort of stuff just because it's fun and it.
We channel the inner celebrity in us.
Yeah, Blake, our producer from Primate in Georgia here, he does a Bone Crusher that's to die for. He's
Blake Crusher.
Blake Crusher. Yeah, it's like perfect. It sounds just like him.
Blake Crusher.
So we all have like weird, I don't know. We're such a bunch of weirdos, man. This is such a weird company.
We are.
I love it though.
It works.
It's the best.
Yeah,
now-
that's going to drive me nuts until I figure out who it is, though, because
You're going to have to look it up,
Yeah,
Chad.
yeah,
We
exactly.
gotta
I'm going to have to
know.
look it up.
We'll have to do a sequel to this podcast.
Yeah.
Because now everyone's going to be racking their brain. So
It
we've
might have
also
been Brandon.
just,
I don't know.
Right.
he's going to interject in a few minutes with the answer.
Perfect.
He'll know.
If
Now
only
we
there was
also-
something online that I can look up, Oh, yeah, Google. That's right.
That's right.
Oh, geez, what's that thing
We got that.
that knows the answer to everything? Now, we've also started Level 77 the last couple years, which you've been a big part in.
Level 77.
Yes, Level 77. Tell us about your...
So Level 77 is, I hate starting stuff with it's so hacky these days, but you
Restart
can't
it.
resist it.
Restart it.
Oh, hang on. I got it. And I was way off, by the way.
It was Belle Biv DeVoe. Not
I
Did
was-
Google tell you,
I
Chad?
was so way off. It was Zed. Beautiful Now.
Oh,
there
not
you
even
go.
close.
Okay, right.
Beautiful Now. What did he do? He redid the song?
Yeah, it was You Might Not Know How. You Might Not Know Why. That part.
All right, you might not know how now, you might
Yeah.
not know why. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
I
That's
love
right.
that song.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a great song. That's a really. I do remember that now. Wow.
Yeah. You crushed that one, but I found it. Okay, I'm good. We can move on.
No, we can end now.
Right.
Podcast
Exactly.
done.
Podcast done. We're retiring.
Sorry.
No, so level 77. Right. So level 77 is kind of our attempt to replicate what we used to do back in the day with like the Billboard charts. You know, we used to use music that we would find on the charts, and the goal is to kind of recreate that sort of vibe, you know? So it's basically just a catalog of songs that we have. Most of them are kind of shorter little snippets like the ones that we use for cheer mixes, but we're starting to put more full-length songs on there. We have a couple new releases this next month, in fact, that you guys can look forward to. Yep, shout out to Level 77 releases. And that's been a lot of fun because that is more like the stuff that I've always done in the mainstream music world, which is like, okay, you have a little production budget, take this money and make albums, like make a record, make an old school hip hop record, make a modern pop record, make a country record, make an EDM record, like all these things that we get to do. And that for me is just very straightforward, like recording and mixing and mastering, which is really that's what I love. I mean, I'm admittedly, I'm a studio rat kind of no matter what else I try to do. It's sort of where I'm the happiest. But that's been a really cool process because we get to put out music, and now it's not even just for cheer music, right? So the Level 77 stuff we have on the catalog is meant to be used for anybody who wants to use it. So people who are making films or doing TV commercials, video games, any of that sort of stuff, you know, we offer licensing and usage for those sorts of things through Level 77. So that's been really cool, and that's been a fun project to just watch kind of gestate and get bigger and bigger, you know, and we got some really cool stuff coming for you guys on that front. But I think the people who use it currently are pretty happy with it because the goal with that was we have a bunch of other catalogs that we get music from and get licensing from, and they're great, but a lot of them they're much more meant for kind of like movie soundtrack stuff. It's a little bit more broad based than our particular usage. And so we may have a catalog that has, you know, 15,000 awesome songs, but we can use, you know, maybe 400 or 500 of those for cheer mixing, you know, because it's a very particular type of production that we tend to use for cheer mixes. So we saw kind of a gap in the marketplace with our catalog where we were like, okay, we can do a similar thing, but we can tailor this music much more for sort of high energy athletic competition, you know, different competitive sports and different arrangements like that. And that's I think where our strength is as a catalog, is that we're trying to tailor things to a certain type of production. Now that's changing as we move on with the catalog, obviously, because we're seeing the opportunity for different types of usages as well. And so we've been working more with that sort of stuff. But yeah, right now, I mean, if you want hard hitting, energetic music that can be plug and played in any cheer mix, there's no better place to go than Level 77 right now. I mean, I stake my career on it. We've been doing a great job, and Molly especially running it on the admin side. Patrick kind of overseeing the grand vision of what that's going to look like. I mean, it's been really cool. So I mean, it's fun to be involved in a company with so many different kind of you know, little pots on the stove. You know, we got little things boiling here. We got something sauteing and some garlic butter over here.
I love
you know
garlic
what I mean?
butter.
It's the best, right? It's hard to beat it. Add some rosemary in that thing too. It just sets it off. Now it becomes a cooking show, guys. Let's talk about sous vide for a second. All right. No. So yeah, Level 77 is awesome. That's something that we're really excited about on the music end of what we do.
Yeah. And all of us producers like use all of these songs as much as we possibly can. Like they're really, really quality songs, especially for the medium that we do them in.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, like Anthony said, the catalogs have like some really great, amazing songs that we can get our hands on and that they licensed us to use for cheer mixes. But I mean, if we only have 500 usable songs in that catalog, and then you do 100 mixes a year and each mix uses 5 songs, it's like, well, that lasted you a year. Now what?
Right. And they do release new content, but it's not as often as you maybe would want it to be, and nor is it compatible. I mean, they may release, you know, 4 albums a year that have 2 songs each that are usable for us. You
right.
know? So we're trying to fill a niche in the market that we've seen we can carve out. And I think it's working pretty well so far. I think the people who are outside of our company who use it have all been pretty happy with it so far.
I've gotten great feedback. I mean, the songs are amazing. They speak for themselves.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, it's amazing because we go back and listen through these songs and think about how the making of them and the process. And I mean, I don't even know how many songs we have on that catalog at this point, maybe over 500, right? 7 something maybe. But I mean, just banger after banger. Like I listen back and I'm like, this could be a hit. This could be a hit. It's just cool to have that kind of a catalog under our belts right now.
We were just talking about that song Over You in the album you guys released last month. Chad, have you listened to it? Immortal EDM is the name of the album.
Yeah.
Over You. It's like such an amazing song. My husband, John's like obsessed with it. He wants to buy it on Spotify to listen to.
I'm obsessed with that song too. I love that song. And the guy
So
who
good.
sings it, this guy named David Garcia, one of the best singers I've ever worked with in my life. He's got this incredible like rock voice, but he's got the range like I've never heard anyone. I mean, someone who looks like him, you don't expect him to hit the notes that he can hit, and it's unbelievable to watch. That's my favorite part about doing what I do, honestly, is just I get to sit in front of some of the most talented people you could ever imagine. I mean, some of these people aren't signed to labels. You may never even hear their music, but they're, especially here in Atlanta where we are, my God, man, incredible talent.
So much talent.
It's shocking. Like some of the vocalists right now for Patrick's stable of artists for Cheer Music Pro. I mean, we use probably around 50 artists at this point. And like, I can't even tell you. I mean, out of all 50 of them are amazing in one way or the other. There's just talented people everywhere you look. We're very fortunate to be doing this in this city as well, because it's just
we have access to a lot of talent.
We really do. It's a hotbed of modern music, and we're lucky to be here.
I always like to be there for the first session when these people come in to record. And we have them recording for cheerleading music, and they have no idea what to expect. And then we kind of have to put it in context for them. So we show them what we're doing, and they're just like, all right, just give me the script and I'll do it. And some of these people have been with us for years now.
Yeah. I mean, we have artists that have 5-6 years we've been recording them, and we do kind of a lot of our recording during a part of the season, usually over the summer, and they come back and it's like, hey man, how have you been? We all catch up on, it's really cool. It's a really fun. It's hard to be mad at this job, man. I always joke that I wish my high school guidance counselor had told me this was an option when I was a kid. Like if I had known, like, wait, you can sit in a nice room with speakers and make music sound good and get paid for it. Like, yes, I'll do that right now. Why did you tell me I could just be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant? Like, I don't want to do any of that. I want to make music sound good with my friends.
Why did I take physics?
Right.
When I could have just done this.
Exactly.
Well, man, thank you for. This has been great. This is everything that we had thought it would be with you. Me and Molly joked when your name got brought up to be one of our first guests. Just all we have to do is turn the mic on and let him go, and kind of point him in the right direction, and that's what happened. We went from Full Sail to mixing with Patrick to some ingredients for some nice food that now I'm starving. I want to go eat something.
Garlic butter.
Garlic. See, you cannot go wrong with garlic butter.
That's, I think, really the main focus that we should think about after this podcast, guys. Is garlic butter, and
I mean,
we can apply and use it.
I'm thinking spinoff. I mean, we have on
2.
that note. Maybe there's something else we can go with that is more, food friendly.
On that plate.
On that
plate. Yep. And then we say, yep, exactly.
See,
on that bread roll.
Guys,
that's awesome.
Are we brilliant, guys? Are we geniuses?
I think so. It feels like we are.
No, Chad, Molly, you guys are the absolute best. I can't thank you enough for having me on here. This stuff is fun to talk about for me. I could talk about it forever because I could talk about most things forever, to be honest with you. But this is something I'm passionate about, and I love it. And it's fun being around other people who are just as passionate, and we can all kind of geek out and all of our technical talk. That's one thing, but it's really fun because we're all very unified, I think, in our vision for what we want this company to be, how we want it to look, and like kind of how we want it to operate. And I always joke about this too, which is amazing, which is like there's no awful people in this company. Do you know what I mean? Like all of our producers, they're such cool personalities. It's so cool to work with them. And like even the heaviest drama we have is like still pretty mild compared to what I think a lot of other companies deal with personnel. I mean, we just lucked out. A lot of that, honestly, I mean, Patrick and Molly, you know, they're very selective about the people that they ask to come aboard New Level. And I think that's been a big help to us too, is that we seek out personalities that work within our kind of our framework of how we want our company to, like, sort of the company ethos, I guess you could say.
The culture.
And yeah, exactly. Culture of the company. Right. That's a huge part of what makes or breaks a company, right? I mean, you can have the best, it's like I said earlier, you can have the best idea in the world and execute it perfectly. But if your staff is all miserable and they all hate each other, like, what do you do? You know, I mean, what are you actually doing? I mean, it's not fun to work in an environment like that. And we're so lucky that we get to not do that. I mean, we get to be with the people that we know and love. And you two particularly, I mean, thank you guys so much for having me. And it's an absolute blast to be here speaking with you.
Well, we really appreciate it, man. I mean, you know, we could take this conversation for about 2 more hours, just with all three of us, you know, how well we get along, and we can always talk about anything, and it can just carry on forever. But we're trying to keep this thing down to an hour tops.
Yeah, sensible amount of time.
A sensible amount of time, exactly.
I'm totally fine with that.
We can spill over to lunch, guys.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, that just gives us a reason to have you back on.
Exactly.
Yes, part 2. I'm all about it. Anytime. You guys let me know. I'm here.
Well, guys, thank y'all so much for joining us. We hope that you found this as intriguing as we did. Be sure to hit us up on social media. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like. But be nice, because it is social media. But you know, we are doing this for you all to listen and enjoy. So we welcome your feedback. Make it constructive, and we hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Anthony on that note.
Thank you, everyone. We will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.